Hi my friend, in this video we're going to be making disco house bass inspired by David Penn and OFFAIAH's song Satisfied. And we're going to find out if we can do this in under 20 minutes by using the 80-20 rule of disco house bass production. What you're listening to right now is the song that we'll be working on. And what you're looking at right now is the Ableton project file that we'll be working on. In particular, we're going to focus on this bass group right here, and we're going to go in order of the tracks of how I actually built it out, so you can kind of follow along and recreate this in your own custom workflow as you're building out your tunes. All in all, it only took me about 20 to 25 minutes to recreate this bass like this, and this entire song mixed, mastered, arranged, completely ready to go, took about 5 to 6 hours of in-studio time. Make sure you stick around to the end of the video. We'll be going over the 80-20 rule so you can learn how to build out songs super quick like this. And if you do need help finishing songs faster, just like this, I've made you a free bundle of templates, samples, and special bonuses that I use to completely finish one song just like this every single week. Visit the link that's on screen now or in the description to grab the ultimate song finishing toolkit for free. And if you want to take things to the next level, you can also find a link to this video's project files in the description as well. With that said, let's jump into this. Alright, so let's dive into the bass here. So the very first thing, right off the bat, first key here is the song David Penn, OFFAIAH's song Satisfied, is in here as a reference track, and I've set it up so that it's turned off, but when I press the S key on my keyboard, I can flick back and forth to try to get things to sound similar. And so for this one, it's like with this disco bass sound, it's definitely kind of mostly a sub bass with maybe a bit of a sound of like a bass guitar, I would say. But it sounds like it's mostly, I would say, sub bass. So first thing is the notes. So let's have a look at the notes and a listen to that. So the idea is to flick back and forth. And kind of try to get a similar vibe, but not fully ripping it off. The idea that I usually go for here is to try to catch the vibe, but not rip it off, so that way you can actually build it out into something, your own track, as opposed to just having a perfect remake. So this is kind of the vibe. It's kind of like a cool little stuttery, repeating sound, I would say. Just look at the notes. I'm not crazy with music theory, so just have a look at them, I guess. And if you want the project files in the description. But next, let's move on to the next phase, which is the sound design. So when it comes to the sound design, I always like to have two layers with my bass, a sub layer and a bass guitar layer. And the first one I usually like to do is this sub layer. So this is what the sub sounds by itself. So you can hear it's carrying most of the weight of the track and even most of like the sound of the bass as well. And so what's cool about using a sub like this is it's similar to using like a basic guitar or a basic piano. You can start like this without focusing on the sound design and really make sure that you get the right notes. In addition to that, when you're mixing, then you have one track that takes care of all the low end, and then you can have another track that's taking care of more of the character and the vibe. So keeping things on the sub for now, before we get to that character and vibe, I'm running into a little thing that I made here called the V sub, and it's basically just operator doing a basic sine wave with the option to add in different levels of saturation, which can fill out the sound a bit, make it so you could hear it on laptop speakers a little bit more, and also can add some vibe and character to your sub bass. Other than that, the main thing I want to call out here is I have a one knob sidechain here, so that way it's just using an Ableton shaper instead of having to map it to the kick and all that kind of stuff. Just with one knob, you can get that cool sidechain pumping effect and make room for the kick as well. So that's a look at the subs. Then let's add on the bass guitar layer. So it's subtle, and what it's doing is adding in a bit of like mid-range character and vibe to the track. And like by itself, it probably sounds terrible. Actually pretty cool. But so the idea here is, first off, in terms of the notes, you'll notice that there's no notes here. And what I'm doing here is, instead of having this over here set to all ends, I've set it to subs, which means the MIDI from subs is going to be automatically routed into this channel. This way, as you're building out the track, if you kind of change things up on the MIDI here, You don't have to copy and paste things over a million times. It's just going to automatically route in. A big key point here, though, is when working with multiple layers like this with your bass, one thing I like to have always is a pitch device. So that way, in this case, I had to move it up an octave from what sounded good on the sub. Sometimes you might need to move it up 2 octaves, sometimes down. And this way, you can still route it into your mid-bass layer and adjust the pitch all from here. Then I'm running it into this little device that I made. It's a bass guitar sound from the plugin, but I didn't want to load the plugin every time. So just kind of added into an Ableton sampler device. It's kind of a bass guitar sound. I am adjusting the sustain a little bit so the sound's a little bit tighter, trying to kind of make it a little bit more cohesive with the sub sound. And then a lot of EQ here, just getting rid of all the lows because you want the sub to be taking care of that department. And then I'm rolling off a ton of the highs too to get to kind of keep it blended in and mostly kind of trying to keep it more of or less a subby sound, I would say. Then the next thing is running into the transient shaper. It's just a free kilohertz transient shaper, and I've mapped all the main knobs here, pulling back the sustain so it's tightening up the sound a bit. Then running it into this one knob width plugin. It's a plugin called Wider, and that's free as well. Again, just map the main knobs here so that way I can just quickly adjust the width. Trying to make it so the mid bass is a little bit more stereo, so it's filling up the sound a little bit, and leaving the center free for the sub to take care of. And then we're running into a one knob sidechain, which is similar to what's built into that D sub. This is kind of what it looks like. It's a shaper device going to quarter notes and just ducking out volume instead of having to play with compressors and do all that kind of stuff. And just with one knob you get it done. And then a little bit of saturation to fill out the sound a little bit. I'm just using Ableton Saturator here. And that is pretty much it. I do want to show you in this particular tune, I took like a left turn on it. So if we listen to it's more or less just that. And then I built it out so that eventually like a chord progression happens. So I'm just going to show you the back half of this remake. Show you the notes. So again, we listen back to feels like there's some kind of progression happening in the original track as well. And that's more of an arrangement idea, but the idea is back half of the song has more of a chord progression going on, first half of the song has more just standard notes. And then I'm running into a little bit of group processing here that I could show you. This is all off. I'm running into a K-clip to kind of take control of the levels a little bit, aiming for about a decibel of reduction there. And then running into this bass punch in parallel, a bit of parallel compression here, a little bit of saturation, and the K-clip again. I'll go over a mixing video in this one, and we'll go into that in more detail. For sure. Kind of cool spot here. Okay, and I think in terms of the bass, that's a pretty good wraparound, I would say. Let's go into an 80-20 rule recap. I want to make sure you have a good understanding of all the key ideas of like 80-20 rule mixing here, really locked in. Before we do that, should also mention that this video is sponsored by our good friends over at Rocket Powered Sounds. The kick, snare, and clap samples that you heard in this project file was actually from their Ultimate Sample Pack, which is a massive sample pack filled with over 1,000 usable and iconic sounds. And as a special bonus, you can get 30% off of that Ultimate Sample Pack. Just visit the link on screen now or in the description, and be sure to use the coupon code ULTIMATEBESTFRIENDS to get 30% off. Thank you again to Rocket Powered Sounds for hooking up our community here, and let's jump back into the 80-20 rule for this vid. Hi, my friend. Matt from Best Friends Club here, and if you've been paying attention, then you probably have already figured out what the 80-20 rule is when it comes to building out your basses. So the goal here is to get 80% of the result with only 20% of the time, energy, or effort. And because the first key to the 80-20 rule of bass is to use a reference track, we're making sure that we're very easily hitting 80% of a very professional sounding track. In particular, we focus on nailing the notes that our bass is playing, the sound design of our bass, as well as the volume of our bass track compared to that reference track. This just keeps things fast and super focused. The second key of the 80-20 rule here is to layer your basses so that you have the maximum amount of control over your bass's melody, low end, and the character or vibe. The third and final key is to repurpose your old projects by adding old project files, racks, and entire groups to your Ableton collection folder. By creating a suite of powerful templates, Ableton racks, and one knob effects that you've personalized and curated over time, it's going to make sure that you get a higher quality result faster. If you'd like to get a head start by downloading all the racks, templates, and all the files that you've seen me use in the Ableton project file for this video, or if you'd just like to take a closer look at any of the techniques or tracks you saw me work on in this video at your own pace, you can find a link to this video's project files on screen now and at the second link that's in the YouTube description. I'm recreating a different song from the Beatport top charts every single week and making the project files available to anyone who wants them. You'll also get access to a private Discord where you can ask me and the community questions, as well as shared tracks for feedback. If you or your music are not quite ready for a shot in the arm like that, I've also made you a completely free bundle of templates, samples, and special bonuses that have helped me figure out how to completely finish one new song each and every single week. And you can grab that free Ultimate Song Finishing Toolkit by visiting the first link that's in the YouTube description here. However, if you just feel like staying on YouTube for now, that's totally fine. Save that link for later and check out this playlist of videos where I remake basses from other songs from the Beatport top charts. Or if you want to take what you learned in this video to the next level, definitely check out this video right here.